What happened? Where is she?
She's alive, please hurry!
Save my mom. The little girl begged the Korean Mafia lord, and he froze when he saw his own eyes staring back at him. She was 6 years old. No bodyguard. No parent. No fear. She walked through the steel doors of the most dangerous building in Seoul, a place grown men approached on their knees, and she asked for him by name. Not the boss. Not sir. By his full name. Yoon. And when his head of security brought her into the room, when Kai looked up from the table where empires were decided and wars were quietly started, he stopped. Not because a child had found him. Not because she had bypassed 3 security perimeters that had stopped federal agents cold. He stopped because the little girl looked up at him with dark, steady, fearless eyes. And they were his eyes. Same shape, same depth, same quiet fury behind them that he had spent 34 years learning to hide. He didn't breathe for 4 seconds. The men around him didn't either. Not because they understood what they were seeing, but because in 6 years of working for Kai-jun as CEO, they had never once seen him flinch. He flinched, and nobody in that room knew what it meant. But you will, because this story isn't just about a little girl who walked into a lion's den. It's about the woman who raised her to be brave enough to do it. It's about the secret that woman carried for 6 years, sealed in letters she wrote and never sent. It's about a man who thought he had dismantled every soft thing inside himself, and a child who walked through his door and proved him wrong in 4 seconds flat. And it's about a war, quiet, precise, and ruthless, that was never really about the little girl at all. Hold on, because nothing about this story is what it looks like at first. If you are new here, welcome. This channel tells stories that will rearrange something inside you. Hit that subscribe button right now, turn on the notification bell, and join thousands of people who never miss an episode. If you've been here before, you already know, leave a comment before this video ends. Tell me, did you see the twist coming? Share this with someone who needs a story tonight. Now, let's go back to where this really begins. 6 years before that little girl walked through those doors, there was a night in Seoul that Amanda Okafor has never stopped thinking about. She was 31, a Nigerian-American human rights lawyer on her first international secondment. Sharp, careful, and deeply uninterested in anything that wasn't the case file open on her hotel desk. She had not come to Seoul to feel anything. She had come to work, but Seoul had other plans. It was at a legal gala, one of those events where old money and new power wear the same suits and pretend they don't know each other's sins. Amanda was there for a handshake and an exit. She got a conversation instead. He didn't introduce himself as anything important. He said his name was Kai. He asked what she was reading because she had somehow arrived at a networking gala with a paperback in her clutch. She told him. He'd read it. They argued about the ending for 40 minutes in a corner while the room swirled around them. She didn't know who he was. That matters. She found out in the morning. Not from him. From a news alert on her phone. A story about the most feared criminal network in South Korea, accompanied by a photograph. A photograph of a man she recognized. A man whose jacket was still folded over the chair by her window. She put the phone face down. She got dressed. She left. She did not look back. Not once. Because Amanda Okafor had built her entire life on the principle that some doors, once seen clearly, must be closed, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. She flew home to Lagos 3 days later. 6 weeks after that, she discovered she was pregnant. She sat in her bathroom in Lagos for a long time. She thought about calling him. She thought about what it would mean to call him. She thought about what kind of world a child would grow up in, with a father who ran the underworld of an entire nation. She made her decision. She would raise this child alone. She would protect her the only way she knew how, with distance, silence, and love so fierce it would never leave a gap. She named her Chitara. It meant God decides. And Amanda, brilliant and disciplined and quietly breaking, picked up a pen and wrote Kai the first letter she would never send. I don't know if you would have been different. I don't know if I would have let you try. But I want you to know she exists. I want you to know she has your eyes. I want you to know I'm not writing this for you. I'm writing it so the grief has somewhere to go. She sealed it. She put it in a box. She never mailed it. She did it again the next year. And the year after that. 6 letters. 6 years. 6 sealed confessions to a man who had no idea he was a father. Chidera grew up in Lagos, knowing she was loved completely. She grew up watching her mother work 18-hour days, fight impossible cases, and never once complain. She grew up knowing her father was not there, but not knowing why, not yet. What she did know was the photograph. She had found it by accident at age 4, tucked inside the back cover of her mother's oldest journal, soft at the edges from handling. A man, Korean, serious face. But the eyes were hers. She had held the photograph up to a mirror once and compared them, solemnly, the way children conduct private investigations. She never told her mother she had found it. She just kept it in her memory, quiet and certain, like a compass she wasn't ready to use yet. Until the day she had to use it. Until the day Amanda's world collapsed. And Chidera decided, with the terrifying clarity that only 6-year-olds possess, that there was exactly one person who could save her mother. She just had to find him first. Amanda had not planned to return to Seoul. She had built an entire life around not returning to Seoul. But grief does not consult your plans. Her mother, Dr. Ngozi Okafor, retired professor, proud woman, keeper of secrets Amanda had not yet discovered, died on a Tuesday in November, quietly, in her sleep, the way good people sometimes do. Amanda flew back to Lagos, buried her mother with every dignity she deserved, held Chidera through 3 nights of crying, and then began the paperwork. That was when the first letter arrived. Not one of Amanda's unsent letters. A legal letter. Formal. Embossed. Korean firm. It informed her in precise and unapologetic language that her late mother's estate was subject to a pending probate claim filed in the Seoul commercial courts, because Dr. Ngozi Okafor had held a silent business partnership with a Korean national named Yoon, and that partnership had never been formally dissolved. Amanda read it twice. Then she called her mother's oldest friend, Annie Beasy, and asked if she had ever heard the name Yoon. Annie Beasy went quiet for just a half second too long. "Your mother mentioned him once," she said carefully. "A long time ago. She said he was a good man. She said she trusted him." Amanda noticed what Annie Beasy did not say. She did not say he is still a good man. She did not say don't worry. She just said trusted, past tense, and moved on quickly. Amanda booked 2 tickets to Seoul the next morning. She told herself it was routine. She told herself she would be in and out in 2 weeks. She told herself Seoul was just a city, and cities do not remember people who pass through them. She almost believed it. She arrived in Seoul on a gray Thursday. Chidera held her hand at the airport with the focused calm of a child who understood, instinctively, that her mother needed steadying. They checked into a modest serviced apartment in Mapo-gu, far from the hotel where Amanda had made the worst and best decision of her life 6 years ago. She had chosen it deliberately. Different district, different skyline, same city. She could not control that part. The first meeting with Yoon's legal team was scheduled for Friday morning. Amanda walked in prepared, bilingual documents, clean financial records, a clear line of inheritance. She sat across from 3 Korean lawyers in expensive suits and waited for the routine opening statements. What she got instead was an ambush. The lead attorney, a composed man named Park who smiled like he was doing her a favor, slid a document across the table. It was a guardianship petition, filed 6 days ago, citing Amanda's financial instability, the unresolved estate debts, her status as a foreign national without permanent Korean residency. And this was the part that made Amanda's vision narrow, a colonial-era legal provision, rarely invoked, that tied a minor child's inheritance rights to the estate's primary legal guardian in the event of disputed succession. In plain language, Yoon was filing for legal custody of Chidera. Amanda did not move for 5 full seconds. Then she said, very quietly, "On what basis does a man my daughter has never met believe he has any claim to her?" Park smiled again. "Ms. Okafor, the basis is the law. Your mother's estate carries a debt of 380 million won, debt accrued through the partnership. Until that debt is resolved, the estate is frozen. Your primary income is derived from that estate's trust provision. Frozen estate means frozen income. Frozen income classifies you, under Article 47 of the Korean Family Code as financially unable to provide stable primary care. He paused. He let that land. We are not seeking to punish you. Mr. Yoon is a compassionate man. He simply wants to ensure the child is protected during the legal process. Amanda looked at him for a long moment. How long do I have? A preliminary custody hearing has been scheduled. 72 hours. She walked out of that building and stood on the pavement in the November cold and did something she had not done since the night she found out she was pregnant. She pressed her back against a wall, closed her eyes, and let herself feel the full weight of what was happening. 72 hours. She had 72 hours to find a Korean family law attorney willing to take an emergency case for a foreign national with frozen assets, build a counter-argument against a legal provision that hadn't been meaningfully challenged in 40 years, and locate whatever buried evidence might explain why Yoon Hyuk-jin, a man her mother apparently trusted, had transformed into a man filing to take her child. She had no local contacts, no network, no liberty. She had herself, her mind, 6 years of fighting impossible cases. She straightened up. She breathed. She went back to Chitara. That night, Amanda worked until 2 a.m. Chitara slept in the next room, small and certain under a hotel duvet, unbothered by the gravity of what circled her. Amanda pulled every document she could access, cross-referenced Korean inheritance law with international family court precedents, and wrote 3 urgent emails to colleagues who might know someone, anyone, in Seoul's legal community. Then she fell asleep at her desk. She did not hear Chitara wake at 6 a.m. She did not hear her open the small backpack she had quietly packed the night before while Amanda was on the phone. She did not hear her take the folded paper from inside her mother's journal, the one she had memorized years ago, the one with the address she had found tucked behind the photograph. She did not hear the soft click of the apartment door. By the time Amanda woke at 7:15, hands cramped, neck stiff, the apartment was quiet in the particular way that means something is wrong. She checked the bedroom first. Empty. Bathroom. Empty. She called Chitara's name twice, the second time louder, with an edge in her voice that she couldn't control. Nothing. On the kitchen counter, there was a single sheet of paper torn from a notepad. 6-year-old handwriting. Large, careful letters, the way children write when they want to be taken seriously. Don't worry, Mommy. I found him. He will help. I will be back. Amanda read it once. Then the floor came up to meet her. No company name. No directory listing. No digital footprint that a casual search would find. It existed in the way that truly powerful things exist, hiding in plain sight, dressed as something ordinary. A private investment firm in Gangnam-gu, 12 floors of tinted glass and quiet security. The kind of place that made people cross the street instinctively without knowing why. Chitara did not cross the street. She walked straight to the entrance. The guard at the front, a large man named Seo who had worked the door for 4 years and had never once been surprised, looked down at the small Nigerian girl standing on the pavement with a backpack and a folded piece of paper and felt something in his chest shift uncomfortably. I need to see Kai Jun Seo, she said. In English. Clearly, like she was placing an order. Seo looked left, then right, then back down at her. This is a private building. I know, Chitara said. I have his address. I came a long way. She held up the folded paper like it was a boarding pass. My name is Chitara Okafor. Please tell him. Seo did not know why he called it in. Later, he would tell the others he didn't know either. Something about the way she stood. Something about the name. Something about the eyes. Even then, even from a distance, something familiar that he couldn't place but couldn't ignore. He made the call. He used the private line. He said the words out loud and felt ridiculous saying them. There's a child at the door. She says her name is Chitara Okafor. She's asking for you by name. Sir, she says she came a long way. There was a silence on the other end. Not a confused silence. Not an irritated one. A different kind of silence. The kind that precedes a decision already made. Bring her up, Kai said. The elevator opened directly into the top floor. No lobby. No waiting room. Just a large, spare room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul. Gray sky, distant mountains, the city spread out like a circuit board below. 5 men stood along the walls. A long table. Documents. The quiet machinery of power mid-operation. Kai stood at the head of it all. He was not what people imagine when they imagine men like him. He was not loud, not visibly armed, not performing. He wore a dark wool suit, no tie, sleeves pushed to the elbows. A man in the middle of work, not theater. He was tall. Still. The kind of still that takes years to build, where the stillness itself becomes the warning. CO brought the child in and took 2 steps back. Chitara walked forward. She stopped 3 feet from Kai and looked up at him the way she looked at everything, directly, without apology, with the full force of her attention. She tilted her head slightly to one side, studying his face with the solemn methodology of a child who has been preparing for this moment for a very long time. Kai looked down at her, and the world stopped. It was not metaphor. It was physical. His breath stalled. His hands, which had never shaken in this room, held themselves very carefully still, because the child looking up at him had his exact eyes. Not similar, not reminiscent, identical, the shape, the depth, the particular darkness, the calm fury living just behind them that he had spent 3 decades weaponizing, and this child had apparently been born with and done nothing to hide. He looked at her and saw himself. He looked at her and understood, in the space of 4 seconds, everything that 6 years of silence had contained. Nobody in the room moved. Nobody spoke. The men along the walls understood nothing except that something unprecedented was happening in front of them. Their sovereign, the man who had faced down rivals and government investigations and international pressure without blinking, was standing very still and looking at a child like she had just pulled something out of his chest. Chitara spoke first. "Save my mom," she said. Just that. No preambid. No explanation. She had clearly decided, somewhere between the apartment and this room, that she would not waste his time. "Kaisiel Tiktenet. What is your name?" "Chitara Okafor." She paused. "My mom is Amanda Okafor. You knew her. 6 years ago." Another pause. Precise. Deliberate. "I think you know who I am." The room was so quiet that the city below felt audible. Kai crouched down to her level. Slowly. The way large men move when they are suddenly aware they are large. He looked at her face at close range, and the confirmation hit him again, harder this time, a fact so enormous it had no adequate response. He searched her expression for fear and found none. None at all. Just steady, patient certainty. The certainty of a child who had made a plan and executed it and was now waiting for the adult portion of the plan to begin. "Where's your mother right now?" he said. "At the apartment. She doesn't know I'm here yet." A beat. She's going to be very upset. But she could be upset later. Right now she needs help, and she won't ask for it herself because Chitara paused, seeming to search for the word. She's proud. She's very proud. Something moved across Kai's face. Too fast to name. Gone before anyone could catalog it. "What kind of help?" he said. It was not quite a question. "A man named Yoon is trying to take me away from her." He filed papers. There's a court hearing in. She checked her wrist. She was not wearing a watch. She looked back up at him, unembarrassed. "A while. Not very long. She has no money right now because they froze it. And she doesn't know the Korean lawyers, and she worked all night and fell asleep at her desk, and she looked for the first time." Chitara's voice shifted, just slightly, just at the edges. She looked really scared. "And my mom doesn't get scared." Kai stepped back up. He turned away from her for 3 seconds, facing the window and the gray Seoul sky beyond it, and did something none of his men had ever seen him do. He pressed one hand briefly to his mouth. Then he turned back. His face was composed. His voice was level. But something behind his eyes had changed irrevocably, and everyone in the room could feel it even if no one could name it. "Jaewon," he said, without looking at his second in command. "Sir, clear the room." His men filed out without question. CO closed the door behind him. And for the first time in 6 years, Kai Jun SEO was alone, with his daughter, whom he had not known existed until 4 minutes ago, and the full impossible weight of everything that meant. Chitara sat down in one of the chairs at the long table, swinging her feet slightly because the chair was too tall, and waited. Kai remained standing. He looked at her for a long moment. "How did you find this address?" he said. "Mom's journal." Behind your photograph. She said it simply, not as an accusation. As a fact, she kept your photograph for 6 years. She kept it hidden, but not very hidden. I think she wanted someone to find it. Kai said nothing. Are you going to help her? Chitara asked. A pause. Yes, he said. Okay. She nodded once, satisfied. She's going to be upset with me, but she'll get over it. Another swing of her feet. She always gets over it. 40 minutes later, Amanda's phone rang. She was already in the street, already moving, already half out of her mind with a fear she was managing with the thin, fierce discipline of a woman who cannot afford to stop functioning. She had called the apartment building's front desk, checked the street cameras with the building manager, traced the route a child might logically walk, and was currently moving toward the nearest police station while simultaneously deciding she was not going to the police because the police would take too long and she did not have time. The number on her screen was unknown. Korean prefix. She answered on the first ring. Ms. Okafor. The voice was low, controlled, and instantly, devastatingly familiar, like a sound she had trained herself to forget and failed. Your daughter is safe. She is with me. I'm sending a car. Amanda stopped walking. The pavement continued existing around her. People passed. The city moved. And Amanda Okafor stood perfectly still on a Seoul street and listened to a voice she had not heard in 6 years and felt 6 years of careful architecture begin to crack. Kai, she said. Just his name. Just that. She found me, he said. She is fine. She is eating rice crackers and telling my security team that their building needs better signage. A sound escaped Amanda. Not quite a laugh. Not quite a sob. Something in between that she immediately locked back down. I'm going to need you to explain a great many things to me, Kai said quietly. I know, Amanda said, but not yet. Right now, a pause. Right now we need to deal with Yoon. And something in the way he said we, so naturally, so certainly, like it had always been true, broke through every wall Amanda had spent 6 years building. She didn't answer. She couldn't. The car will be there in 4 minutes, Kai said. Don't run. The car was black. Unmarked. Immaculate. It arrived in exactly 4 minutes, as promised. Amanda got in without speaking. The driver did not introduce himself, did not make eye contact, did not offer small talk. He simply drove, with the quiet efficiency of someone who understood that the woman in the back seat was holding herself together with something very close to its last threads. Amanda watched Seoul move past the window. She had 13 minutes to compose herself before she would walk into her room and face Kai Jun Seo for the first time in 6 years. 13 minutes to decide what her face would do, what her voice would do, what the 6 years between then and now would look like on her body when she stood in front of the man she had spent them running from. She used all 13 minutes. She was not ready when the car stopped. The elevator opened and she walked in, and the first thing she saw was Chitara, sitting at the long table, feet swinging, holding a rice cracker in each hand, narrating something to a stone-faced security operative who was listening with the rigid attention of a man who had not signed up for this, but was committed to seeing it through. Chitara. Amanda's voice came out steadier than she deserved. Chitara turned. She looked at her mother's face with the careful attention of a child assessing damage. Then she held up a rice cracker. They have the good kind, with sesame. Amanda crossed the room in 6 steps and pulled her daughter into her arms and held her with a ferocity that had nothing diplomatic about it. Chitara allowed this, patting her mother's back with the tolerant affection of someone who had expected exactly this reaction and budgeted time for it. I'm fine, Mom. I know you're fine. Amanda's voice was muffled. I'm not fine. I know. A pause. I found him. I know you found him. Amanda pulled back and looked at her daughter's face and did the rapid maternal inventory. Eyes clear, no distress, rice cracker crumbs on her collar. Intact. Entirely herself. We are going to have a very long conversation about this. Okay. Chitara nodded agreeably. Later, though, Amanda straightened up. She breathed. She turned. Kai was standing by the window exactly as he had been 6 years ago. Not by a hotel window, not in the warmth of something beginning, but But here in his world, in the full truth of who he was, watching her with an expression that gave nothing away except the fact that it was costing him something to give nothing away. 6 years. He looked the same. That was almost offensive. Slightly more still, perhaps. Slightly more weight behind the eyes. But the same. Amanda looked at him and felt 6 years of letters rise up in her throat. "Thank you for keeping her safe," she said. Professional. Measured. The voice she used in courtrooms. "She kept herself safe," Kai said. "I simply provided the building." A silence opened between them. It had texture. It had history. It had 6 sealed envelopes inside it. Chitara looked between them with the bright, assessing eyes of a child watching adults perform emotions they refused to name. She ate her rice cracker. "Tell me about Yoon," Amanda said. Because that was the way through, not through 6 years of feeling, not through the thing cracking open her chest, but through the problem. The case. The 72 hours. Kai's expression shifted. Something harder came in. "Sit down," he said. What he told her took 11 minutes. He told it without decoration, without apology, in the flat, precise language of a man who had long ago stopped softening information to protect the person receiving it. Yoon Hyuk-jin had been a legitimate businessman once. 20 years ago, he had partnered with Dr. Ngozi Okafor on a Seoul Lagos textile import operation. Small, clean, profitable. Her mother's involvement had been genuine. Her trust in Yoon had been genuine. For 15 years, the partnership had been exactly what it appeared to be. Then Yoon had made a decision that changed the nature of everything. 8 years ago, Yoon had come to Kai's network looking for capital. Not an unusual thing. Kai's network moved through legitimate business channels the way water moves through rock, invisibly, shaping everything, leaving no obvious trace. Yoon had needed liquidity. He had received it. He had understood, when he received it, what the relationship meant. For 6 years, Yoon had been a quiet instrument of the network. A respectable front. A name on documents that needed a name that courts trusted. Then Yoon had done something that quiet instruments should never do. He had developed ambitions of his own. He had begun positioning himself within a faction, a group of men who had been pushing against Kai's authority for 3 years, testing boundaries, accumulating leverage, building toward something. The custody filing was not about Chitara. Amanda had understood this instinctively from the moment Park slid the petition across the table. She had felt it the way she felt things in courtrooms, the discrepancy between what was being argued and what was being achieved. The filing was too aggressive, too fast, too legally intricate for a man who supposedly just wanted to protect a child. "They filed for Chitara," Kai said, "because they knew it would reach me." Amanda went still. "They have been watching you since you landed in Seoul," he continued. "Not because of your mother's estate. Because of me. They ran your name 18 months ago, Ms. Okafor. Ran everyone I had ever had prolonged contact with. They found the connection. They found the timeline." He paused. "They found Chitara." The room was very quiet. "They used you to file the petition knowing that a custody threat to my..." He stopped. A precise, controlled stop. "Knowing that a custody threat to the child would force me into the open. Force me to respond publicly. Force me to step outside the anonymity that makes me untouchable." Amanda absorbed this in layers. Lawyer first, then mother, then woman. "They engineered this entire situation," she said. "Yes. The estate debt, the frozen accounts, the colonial provision, all of it constructed. The debt is real," Kai said. "Yoon accumulated it deliberately and attached it to the partnership before your mother died." She didn't know. The legal architecture around the custody petition is real. They used genuine law. They are not amateurs. But the intent behind all of it was never Chitara, Kai said. "It was always me." Amanda looked at him for a long moment. Then she looked at her daughter, who had finished the rice crackers and was now very quietly examining a fountain pen she had found on the table with the focused attention of a child pretending not to listen. "So if you respond," Amanda said slowly, "if you appear publicly, step into a courtroom, put your name on legal documents, you expose yourself. You give them exactly what they wanted. Yes. And if you don't respond, they take Chitara." His voice did not change, but something behind it did. "And you lose everything." Silence. Then they win either way, Amanda said. Kai looked at her. Not if we change what winning means. She should have said no. Every lawyer's instinct she possessed told her to say no. To find another way, to build a legal case on her own terms, to refuse the help of a man whose world was the reason she had run in the first place. She had built her entire career on the principle that the law was the only clean instrument she trusted. But she looked at the 72-hour clock running in her head. She looked at Chitara with the fountain pen. She looked at Kai standing in his truth, not asking her to approve of it, not pretending it was something it wasn't, just offering the one thing she needed. What exactly are you proposing, she said. I appear at the hearing, publicly, as Chitara's father. A beat. I'll legitimize your claim. My legal team dismantles the estate debt. It has enough irregular construction that a competent attorney can pull it apart in 48 hours. Yoon's petition collapses without the financial instability argument, and the faction gets what they wanted. You in the open. They get me visible, Kai said. That is not the same as getting me vulnerable. I know things about the faction that they do not know I know. Stepping into the light is only dangerous if you step in blind. He paused. I did not step anywhere blind. Amanda studied him. The lawyer in her was already picking through the argument, finding its structural integrity, testing the load-bearing walls. The woman in her was doing something else entirely. If you do this, she said carefully, there is no taking it back. Chitara's connection to you becomes legal record. Yes, she becomes visible in your world. Which is why, Kai said quietly, we ensure my world understands what that means. His voice dropped half a register. No one touches what is mine, Ms. Okafor. That has always been true. It simply now includes someone I did not know about yesterday. Amanda felt the sentence land in her chest like something dropped from height. Chitara looked up from the fountain pen. She looked at her mother, then at Kai, then back at her mother. Is he going to help? She asked. Amanda held Kai's gaze for 3 more seconds. Yes, she said. Chitara nodded. Satisfied. She set the pen down neatly. Good. I am hungry. Is there more than rice crackers? That night, while Chitara slept in a secured guest room in Kai's building, Amanda had agreed to that, pragmatically, because the apartment felt exposed. Amanda sat alone in a room Kai had given her, opened her bag, and looked at what she had brought with her from Lagos. 6 envelopes. She always brought them. She did not know why. Perhaps because they had always felt like the most honest things she owned. She sat with them in her hands for a long time. Then she heard a knock. Single. Quiet. She opened the door. Kai stood in the corridor. He had a document in his hand. Her daughter's birth certificate, which he had apparently had his team retrieve from the Seoul Civil Registry database in the past 3 hours. He was looking at it with an expression she had never seen on him before. Something open. Something undefended. He looked up at her. He looked at the envelopes in her hands. How long have you been writing to me? He said. Amanda's throat tightened. 6 years. 1 a year. It wasn't a question. He had somehow already understood. Yes. He said nothing for a moment. Then, I would like to read them. When this is over. A pause. If you'll let me. Amanda looked at the envelopes. 6 years of grief, compressed into 6 sealed rectangles. 6 years of a love she had refused to act on, filed neatly, and carried everywhere like evidence of a case she had never planned to bring. When this is over, she said quietly. He nodded. He handed her the birth certificate. He walked back down the corridor without another word. Amanda closed the door. She pressed her back against it. In 36 hours, Kai Jun-seo was going to walk into a Korean courtroom for the first time in his life. And somewhere across Seoul, in a building she didn't know the address of, a faction of men who had engineered all of this sat back and smiled. Because they were ready for him to walk in. What they were not ready for was what Amanda had already found buried in the estate documents. A thread so small and so damning that she had almost missed it. She had not missed it. She picked up her laptop. She started pulling. She did not sleep. Still needing to know what happens, drop a comment right now. Tell me, did you see Amanda's discovery coming? Like this video, share it with someone who loves a story that doesn't let go, and subscribe if you haven't yet, because the final batch is coming and nothing resolves the way you think it will. The courtroom was smaller than Amanda expected. Korean family courts had a particular stillness to them. Wood paneling, fluorescent light, the bureaucratic quiet of a room where lives were decided with paperwork and procedure. Amanda had been in courtrooms on 4 continents. She had never walked into one carrying this much. She sat at the petitioner's table. Kai sat beside her. He had arrived in a dark suit. No security visible. No entourage. Just him, composed, present, occupying space the way he always did, as though the room had been waiting for him to fill it. The faction's lawyers, seated across the aisle with Yoon between them, had not expected him. Amanda watched them see him, watched the micro-expressions, the flicker of satisfaction, quickly suppressed, the small nod between Park and the man beside him. They thought this was the moment they had engineered. They were 30 minutes from understanding how wrong they were. The night before, Amanda had not slept. She had pulled the estate documents apart layer by layer, the way she pulled every case apart. Not looking for what was there, but for what was almost not there. The thing that someone had tried to make invisible, but hadn't quite managed. She found it at 3 a.m., buried in a 2019 partnership amendment, a document that Yoon's legal team had included in the estate file, presumably because they needed it to establish the debt, was a clause. Subsection 4, paragraph 9. Small print. The kind of clause that gets drafted into documents by lawyers who are covering someone and gets forgotten about by everyone except the person it was meant to protect. The clause stated that in the event of dispute, all partnership assets and liabilities were subject to review under the original 2003 founding agreement, not the 2019 amendment. The 2003 founding agreement contained something the 2019 amendment had carefully removed. A mutual indemnity clause, protecting both partners from debt accrued unilaterally by the other. Yoon had accrued the debt unilaterally. He had accrued it deliberately after 2019 under the amended terms. But the amendment itself, by referencing the original agreement in its dispute clause, had accidentally reactivated the original indemnity. In plain language, Yoon had trapped himself in his own document. The debt was his. Not her mother's, not the estate's, not Amanda's. She presented it in 11 minutes. She stood at the petitioner's table and walked the judge through it with the clean, unhurried precision of someone who had spent the night making sure every sentence was airtight. She used no theatrical language, no emotional appeal, just the document, the clause, the original agreement, and the logical sequence connecting them. Park objected twice. Amanda cited the specific subsection both times, page number included, and waited. The judge read it. The judge read it again. The silence in the courtroom during those 2 readings was the most satisfying silence Amanda had ever inhabited. Park leaned to the man beside him. A whispered exchange. Then to Yoon. Yoon's face had taken on the particular stillness of a man watching a construction he spent years building come apart at a single bolt. The judge set the document down. The debt indemnity clause is valid, he said. The estate debt is not attributable to the late Dr. Okafor's holdings. He looked at the petitioner's table, then at Yoon's table. Without the financial instability designation, the Article 47 provision cannot be applied. The custody petition. We withdraw it, Park said. Quickly. Efficiently. The way you withdraw something when continuing to argue would only make the wound larger. The judge nodded. Petition withdrawn. Custody of the minor Chitara Okafor remains with her mother, Amanda Okafor, without condition. He made a note. He looked up. The estate freeze is lifted effective immediately pending formal debt reclassification. This court is satisfied that no grounds for guardianship transfer exist. He closed the folder. 47 minutes. Start to finish. Amanda sat down. She did not celebrate. She did not exhale dramatically or let tears fall or do any of the things that this moment might have licensed. She sat very still and felt the victory settle into her bones quietly, the way real victories do. Not loudly, but with a deep, structural permanence. Kai beside her said nothing. He did not need to. But under the table, out of sight, his hand moved 1 inch toward hers. Not touching. Just proximate. Present. The smallest possible gesture from a man who was learning in real time how to be near something he cared about without fortifying against it. Amanda did not move her hand away. Outside the courtroom, Yoon passed them in the corridor. He looked older than he had an hour ago. Smaller. The architecture of a man whose plan has failed has a particular visual quality. Something collapsed behind the eyes, something recalculating in the jaw. He stopped. He looked at Kai. This isn't finished, he said. Quiet. Not a threat exactly. More like a man delivering information he wishes he didn't have. Kai looked at him with an expression that had no heat in it at all. Cold precision was more dangerous than anger, and they both knew it. It is finished for you, Kai said. Go home, Hyuk-jin. Tell them it didn't work. Tell them to think carefully about what comes next. Yoon looked at Amanda. Something passed across his face. Not quite guilt, not quite apology, but something in between that was perhaps the last remnant of the man her mother had once trusted. Then he walked away. Amanda watched him go. He didn't act alone, she said. No, Kai agreed. The faction. Yes. They're not done. Kai turned to look at her. No, he said again. They're not done. A pause. But neither am I. Chitara was waiting at the building when they returned. She was sitting in the same chair at the long table, feet swinging, this time with a drawing in front of her. 3 figures rendered in purple marker, height accurate, standing together. She held it up when they walked in. I drew us, she said. Amanda looked at the drawing. 3 figures. A tall woman, a tall man, a small girl between them with enormous eyes. She pressed her lips together. She took the drawing carefully. It's beautiful, Chi. Chitara looked at Kai. Did it work? Yes, Kai said. She nodded. Satisfied. The same nod she had given in this room 2 days ago when she had extracted his agreement and considered the matter settled. Good. I knew it would. She picked up the purple marker again. Can I have a dog? Amanda made a sound. Kai made a different sound. Neither of them was quite a laugh, but both of them were close. That evening, Amanda found the 6 letters on the table in her room. They had been moved. She had left them on the bed. Now they were on the table, still sealed, still in order, still precisely as she had packed them, but moved. Someone had handled them. Someone had looked at them, held them, and put them back without opening a single one. Kai knocked 20 minutes later. She opened the door. He looked at her with an expression she was finally learning to read, the controlled surface, and beneath it, the thing the control was managing. I didn't open them, he said. I wanted to. I didn't. I know, she said. I could tell. A pause. The way they're ordered, he said. The postmarks, you dated them. First one is 6 years ago. Yes. The night you found out. It wasn't a question. She answered anyway. Yes. He was quiet for a moment. You carried them with you. To Seoul. I always carry them. He absorbed that. The weight of it moved across his face in a single, slow wave. Amanda. Her name in his voice after 6 years was almost too much. I'm not asking you to forgive me for being what I am. I know better than to ask that. But I'm asking, he stopped. Steadied. I'm asking to be given the chance to be something more than what you ran from. The hallway was very quiet. 6 years of letters. 6 years of loving him on paper because paper was safe. 6 years of a discipline so fierce and so costly that it had hollowed something out in her she hadn't fully measured until this moment. When this is over, she said, the same word she had said the night before about the letters, read them in order. All 6. Then we'll talk. He nodded. Once. She closed the door. She stood with her back against it in the dark and listened to her own heartbeat, which was doing something entirely unprofessional. 3 floors below, in a black car parked at the edge of the building's blind spot, a man made a phone call. He spoke for 40 seconds. He said 3 things that mattered. He said, Kai appeared publicly. Court record confirmed. He said, the child is still in the building. He said, the letters exist. On the other end of the line, a voice that none of them had ever attributed correctly. Not Yoon, not Park, not the men who thought they led the faction, said 4 words. Good. Begin the next phase. The call ended. The car did not move. It simply waited, the way truly patient things wait. Without urgency, without signal, with the absolute confidence of something that has already decided how this ends. Above it, 12 floors up, A little girl slept with her purple marker still in her hand. She did not know about the car. She did not know about the voice on the phone. She did not know that the man she had walked across Seoul to find, the man with her eyes, the man who had said yes without hesitation when she asked him to save her mother, was now the most visible he had ever been. And that visibility in his world was not safety. It was a target. Amanda had won the case. Kai had stepped into the light. Chitara had her mother. And somewhere in Seoul, in a room none of them knew existed, someone was holding 6 years of unsent letters and knew exactly what they contained. The real danger begins the moment Amanda thinks she's safe. If this story rearranged something in you, smash that subscribe button now, comment right now. Tell me, who is the voice on the phone? What is in the 6th letter? And did you see that ending coming? If you watched this far, you are exactly the kind of person this channel was built for. Hit that like button. Share this video. Someone in your life needs this story tonight. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you are the first to know when episode 2 drops. Because the faction knows about the letters now. And the letters change everything. Don't miss what comes next.